Greetings and salutations. Thanks for clicking on the video. This is an informal video, guys. This isn't like a formal tutorial. We're going to install Linux Mint 17.2 Raphaelia. I think that's the way you say it. And I've been playing around with Linux Mint on another machine lately. And I had posted a video a while back. I was talking about how Linux Mint 17.1 had software issues. And so I had officially stopped supporting it, and I'm not officially supporting it again. It's just a matter of I've been playing with it to see what's up with it. I actually took a hard drive out of this machine that I have it installed on, and like a year ago when it had 17.1 on it, I never did anything with it, so I just put it back in and booted the machine off of it and updated and upgraded it. So that's what I've been playing with. But today we're going to install from scratch, and we're going to be doing it in VirtualBox. And this is just so that I can have another copy of it to play with, and I figured you guys might like to watch. So here we go. I'm going to assume that you know to go to linuxmint.com and download Linux Mint from the download page. We're going to be doing the 64-bit version with Cinnamon today, and that is the one that I like the best. Although there are folks out there who really love Linux Mint Mate edition with the Mate desktop. Yeah, I know it's spelled mate, but it's pronounced Mate. Long story. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with a new virtual machine. And I'm going to put in Linux Mint. And it immediately switches to Linux. Linux Mint is based on Ubuntu. So I'll just find it on the list. And this will give the software some basic stuff to work with so it knows what to do. But we're going to change it anyway, so it really doesn't matter. So next, choose some memory for our virtual machine. And I am going to do, let's see, 2048. We're going to create a virtual hard drive, of course, and a VDI is just fine with me. And it's going to be dynamically allocated. How much space will I give it? I like to give my virtual machines right around 40 gigabytes of space. So 4134 is close enough. And we have created the virtual machine, but we're not done yet. We've got to go in here and tweak some of the settings. So open up settings. And the general settings here, that's fine. Linux Mint. I'm going to go on and enable sharing files back and forth by dragging them and dropping them to the desktop. Since it is Linux Mint and the Cinnamon desktop has its taskbar at the bottom, we want the taskbar for VirtualBox to show at the bottom or the top of the screen. I'm not going to put in a description. System. We've already set the memory. Go to the processor. I'm going to give it 2 processors to work with. And we are going to enable the extended features just in case it uses it. We need 3D acceleration for sure. And we are going to go ahead and just give it all the video memory we can, which is 128 megabytes. All right, here for storage, you can see we already have our lovely virtual hard disk. We need to give it a file to install off of, and in this case I've downloaded the ISO file and it is on the computer. So let us add, I do not want to remove the attachment, gang. We're going to add an attachment, and we're going to choose a virtual disk. And where did I stick it? That's the question that needs to be asked. So go to Home, VirtualBox VMs, and there's our Linux Mint. So that is done. Let's see if there's anything else we need to deal with. Let me go to settings real quick. The network we're going to leave on NAT. This machine is not going to be serving anything out on the network, so that's fine. And I will set up the USB and stuff later if I need to. So we're good to go. This is the basic install. Oh, there's one thing in storage that I did want to check, and it's already there, so that's good. This is all good. We're good. Use the I/O cache. Yes, these are just little performance tweaks that make virtual machines run faster. And by the way, I am using VirtualBox version 4.3.30 to do this. Alright, so we can go ahead and start the machine. And this is what it's going to look like if you drop the DVD or stick your USB stick into your little computer there, and this is what you're going to get. Let us zoom in a little bit on this screen. Well, I don't think we have to. It's going to get big here in a minute when it boots up. Linux Mint is one of my favorite distributions of Linux. It works pretty much out of the box, and you have most of the software that is available for Ubuntu. Actually, all of the software that works for Ubuntu will work on Linux Mint, and the Mint developers do an awful lot to make it very useful when you first boot it up. And I love the Cinnamon desktop. If you've been following my videos, you know that I've done a lot of experimentation with putting Cinnamon on Ubuntu, which is actually what's running on the host machine. And of course, the Cinnaboo project that I was working on, some of you were watching those videos. I have kind of stepped back from that because I tried several times to construct my own distribution of Ubuntu with the Cinnamon desktop on it, and every time I did, I would run into all these little issues that I would have to nail down, and I never did get it quite all figured out. So for now, if you want to try Cinnamon on Ubuntu, go find my video of how to do that. The Cinnaboo thing I'm going to put on hold for a while. Okay, so we're booted up on our Linux Mint. This is exactly what you would see if you would run the live media on your own computer. And I'm just going to go ahead and install it because I know the internet works. Give it just a second to load up here. Running in a virtual environment is a little bit slow. Even though we're not using a physical DVD, it's still slow. Alright, so here we go. The first thing, well actually, let me go ahead and do something really quick. Maybe this will make this video a little bit better. So let me close that. Yes, quit. I want to go ahead and into the settings, and I want to increase the font size. Like 1.2. See, it gets a little bit easier to see for you guys. You're not watching HD video. 1.3 is good. Let's see if this makes this a little bigger. Don't think it'll carry that setting over when we install, but we shall see. So we'll relaunch the installer. Oh yeah, that's a little bit better. So this is the first page you see on the installer. And they ask you to read the release notes. I have. You can do that too at the Linux Mint site. And we choose our language, which is English. Linux Mint requires 9.5 gigabytes of available hard drive space, and it needs to be connected to the internet, although it doesn't go out to the internet for very much during the install process that I remember. I haven't actually installed Linux Mint from scratch in over a year. So alright, we're going to get here, and this I do want to talk about a little bit, and I've talked about this before in past videos, and I want to show you my partitioning scheme and tell you a little bit about why I do it. If you would choose to erase the disk, what Linux Mint is going to do, and Ubuntu does the same thing, and many other distributions of Linux, is they are going to take over the entire hard drive, and most of the hard drive is going to be the root partition, and that's going to contain everything. Your home directory, everything that makes Linux work is going to be in one big happy place. And then at the end of the drive, they'll take the amount of memory that is in your machine, and they will pretty much create a swap area that is that big. Now that's fine, but if you ever want to move this installation around, or if you want to upgrade it in place where you can install a different Linux version in the root partition but leave your home partition alone, then you can't do that. It makes it impossible. So I'm going to show you how I do it. And this came in very handy not too long ago. I had a hard drive that was failing on a computer and I needed to replace it. So I got me a new hard drive and I used Clonezilla to move the contents of the existing drive over to an image and then put it back on the new drive and then resize the partitions to take care of the extra space. And the reason why I was able to do that was because I used the same partitioning scheme. So let's go ahead and do it. And you just click here and we will continue, and we have created a new master boot record. If your computer for some reason or the other uses the EUFI boot scheme, which is new, you can go into BIOS and turn that off. But if you for some reason or other want to install either Ubuntu or Linux Mint on a machine that is EUFI and you want to take advantage of that, then I would suggest that you just go ahead and erase the disk and start over. And just don't do any special partitioning. I'm not really sure how all of that works together. I usually just do a master boot record install, which is the old traditional way of doing it, and that way I can move things around and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, let's get on to this. So we'll click on the free space, and I'm going to take about the first, let's see, I'm going to take about the first 13. Well, it says it needs 9.5, so I better give it enough space, hadn't I? So let's go ahead and just do 15. 15, 0, 0, 0. We want this to be primary. We want the ext4 file system. And we're going to make this the root partition. So this is where our system is going to live. And it'll take a second to get itself together. There we go. Now we want to create our swap file. We don't want this at the end of the drive, because if for some reason I want to clone this machine and move it into a drive that's bigger, I want to be able to resize the last partition. If I put the swap partition at the end of the drive, I can't do that, right? So our swap partition in this case, I'm going to make it 3 gigabytes. I like to make a swap partition that is 1 gigabyte bigger than whatever the memory size in the computer is, unless you have like more than 8 gigabytes of memory in the machine, at which point the swap is hardly ever going to be used, and you can make it a smaller size like 2 gigs, but this is what I normally do. Okay, we're going to go ahead and make that primary and make this a swap area. That's all we need to do. And this will take a second to get itself together. And we're going to take up the rest of the drive, make this primary as well. Remember, the reason for the logical partitions is that with the master boot record system, you can only have 4 primary partitions on any given drive. So they switch over to logical, and that way you can have more than 4, but in this case, we're never going to add another partition, so might as well make them all primary, right? So the ext4 file system is perfect. We're going to mount that to home. And this should take just a second to get itself together. And we're done. Down here it tells us where it's going to install the bootloader, and in this case it's going to be right at the beginning of the only hard disk we have. If you have more than one hard drive in the machine and you want to like have one hard drive that's running another version of Linux or Windows or something like that, make sure that you pay very close attention to where this bootloader goes, and you'll be able to tell by seeing the drive that already has your partitions you want to keep. And this way you can just make sure down here that you don't write over it. So that looks good, so we're going to continue. And it's going to give us some confirmation, and I say yes, continue on, looks good to me. And wait for the next screen to kick in. This install should actually go pretty quick. It doesn't go out to the internet like I said before. Ubuntu, when it installs language packs, and if you tell it that you want updates and all of the codecs, the third-party software, then it can take quite some time depending on your internet connection. I'll buy that. I'm in the Eastern Time Zone, New York. If you're installing from some other place in the world, just click on the map until it shows you where you are. I'm using a US keyboard, and we're going to use US English. That is fine with me. And now we get to the place where we're going to put the account information in. And I'm going to call this LMVM. That name already exists on the network because I have used it before from a long time ago. Give it a password. This particular part of the Ubiquity installer, which is what this program is called that we're using, is not very picky about what passwords you put in, and I'm not a big fan on a virtual machine of having really complicated passwords. There's nobody going to get into my stuff and look at it, but if you are worried about security, then pick a really strong password. Mine is actually, it says a fair password, but it's actually pretty weak. So this is all we're going to do, and right here it gives you the choice to log in automatically. I don't like to do that with Linux, and so I'm going to ask for my password. And then here it will ask to encrypt your home folder. We're not going to do that because if we encrypt the home folder, then we cannot upgrade in place. If you change what's in the root folder, it won't have the key for the home folder, and so therefore it's kind of useless. You'd have to blank out the hard drive and start over. But if you're worried about security, there's your option right there. So it's just going to take off, and it's going to do all this wonderful stuff. And it says it's copying files. So we're going to let that take care of itself, and I'm going to jump over here, and I am going to show you something cool on the other desktop. Now, while we're waiting for that to get started, one of the things about Ubuntu that I always wondered about was the fact that you didn't get colors in your terminal. Let me switch this over to the big fonts, which I created just for videos like this, and you'll see that we have all these nice little colors here, and it tells you the difference between directories. Let's do ls. Show me everything in the home directory, and now you can see we have some differentiation between folders, and it'll also tell us whether we're logged in as root or not. So if I do a sudo -s, okay, it's going to ask for my password. Now watch this. You'll see that we're now logged in as root, and I guess it doesn't, so forget that. Never mind. Scratch that. In some distributions, when you log in as root, it changes the color of your prompt. It didn't seem to do that here. But anyway, we've got some nice little colors here that differentiate files and folders and stuff like that. It's just kind of cool to look at. And in Ubuntu, it doesn't work, and I always wondered why. So if you would like to put colors in your lovely terminal like I have done here, then the first thing that you will need to do is run this command. We're not going to actually run it. Matter of fact, just let me get out of that. All right. If you're wondering what I just did, Control C. Let's clear this. All right, and then we'll go back to where we were so we can talk about this command. Okay, what Ubuntu does is that the bash prompt uses a file called bashrc, and you can go in there and you can change all sorts of lovely things about it, and you can make your own commands and stick them in there. You can look up bashrc somewhere else. And Ubuntu has one that lives in this directory called skell. So it's in /etc/skell, and that is the one that every time that you start a terminal, regardless of what user you're logged in as, it always goes and it looks at. So the first thing that we want to do is use this command, which is cp, to copy, and we'll put a version of bashrc in our own home folder. I'm doing Control C just to clear things. That cancels the command that I have selected, okay? And so if we go in here, and we're already in my home folder, and we're going to show bashrc. And we see now that I have a file in there, and I have edited that file, and the edit is actually just ridiculously easy. I will show you what it is. Alright, this is what the file looks like in Ubuntu, the master file. Now we're going to make a copy of it and put it in our own home directory. If other users on the machine want to do this, or if they want you to set this up for them, you can do the same thing. And that way we can keep the master file, and if we screw anything up, we can always just get rid of this. So what we want to do is come down here, and right here on the master file where it says force color prompt yes, that will be commented out with a hashtag in front of it. Just remove that hashtag and save the file. So that is all you have to do. And then save the change in Nano. And the next time that you open up your terminal, you'll have those lovely colors. And I think I could probably go in there and tell this thing that when I'm logged in as root that I want to change my prompt there to red, but I'm not going to bother with it right now. So that's pretty cool, huh? If you want to go ahead and do that. And I hadn't really thought about it until I saw QuitUp's lovely video on it. He's got about a 1 or 2 minute video. It shows you how to do it, except he says just to go find the bashrc file in your home folder, and the problem with that is that in Ubuntu there isn't one, so you have to copy it, create your own bashrc, and then make the changes you want to. Feel free to research that. It's a lot of fun. Let's go check on our Linux Mint install, see where we're at. And we're downloading some things off the internet, it appears, or something like that. So what we're going to do is I am going to go ahead and pause the video and let this finish, and then we'll pick up where we left off. When it's all installed, we're ready to restart the machine, and we will go from there. So let's do it. Okay, so that took a little while, about 5 minutes or so. I had forgotten that it does download all those language packs. It doesn't download all the other things that Ubuntu does, but there you go. So we're ready to restart, and it says it's all installed. So let's go ahead and do that now. And here we go. Let's see what it does in VirtualBox. And yes, I do know VirtualBox 5 is out. I'm using a little bit of an older version that's a bit more stable. I don't hook up a PPA or get VirtualBox by automatic download or automatic update. I do it by hand. I go to Oracle's website and download the dev files. So let's hit enter. Probably going to try and boot back up into the live CD. No, I don't think it is, ladies and gentlemen. I think that it's actually going to boot into the operating system. So here we go. Lovely blank screen, yes. And I will log in with my super secret, super secure password. And we're going to get a look at the desktop for the first time. Taking a little while to actually load. There we go. Let's see if the guest editions are installed by default. Well, I'll be. Yes, ma'am, they are. That is awesome. Thank you, Linux Mint gang. I appreciate that. So the first thing that I need to do is to get some files and put it on the desktop, because I have some cheats here where I can set up my Firefox and my mail. I have the configuration files in there. Let's see if it's going to do that. Try that one more time. There we go. It just took a second for it to get itself together. Sometimes it does that when you first install. After that, you drag and drop and it works just fine. So thank you, Linux Mint team, for going ahead and putting the guest editions in there by default. That makes me wonder whether Linux Mint 17.2 is also going to install proprietary drivers by default. If anybody knows that, let me know. Like I said, I upgraded to 17.2 on the other machine. So we can just jump into configuring this thing. I can show you some configuration things I like to do. And the first thing that I'm going to do is open up the settings. And we're going to make these fonts a little bit bigger. Now, 1.4 is huge. Let's do 1.3. Kind of like that. Okay, so that makes it a little bit easier to see. And I'm going to change the background because I don't like the stock background. I never did. And the one I'm going to get is from Rebecca because I like this one the best. It's in here. Let's see. That's like a open field. No, that's not the one that I wanted. Which one is the one that I think this is the one that I like. Actually, no, it's not in here at all. That's why I can't find it. I'm going to have to go back to Quaya. I guess that's the way you pronounce that name. I know this is just thrilling for you guys to watch, me sitting here trying to figure out what background, but I'm actually going to use this. So it's one of those kind of things where I actually do want to, there we go. This is the one that I like. It just makes me so calm to look at the beach scene there. So that's what it looks like. And we'll go back through the settings here. That's good. So let's see. I'm not going to bother theming it. I actually like the Linux Mint stock theme. I never bother to theme it. If you want to change it, be my guest. And let's see what else. I'm not going to mess with accessibility. Here, you can go into accessibility, and this is where you can turn the zoom on, which is actually quite useful in the Cinnamon desktop. Here, I'll show you the zoom. See, we're zooming. I'm not going to turn it on in the virtual machine. Well, we could try it and see what it does. Nah, never mind. Not something I'm ever going to use. Date and time, there's some things to change here. First of all, I don't like the 24-hour clock. I like the AM and PM. You can also set it here to show the entire date, as I have done on the host machine. But we're not going to do that in a virtual machine. Just the clock is fine. And also, if you have a laptop with a small screen, then you might not want to do that because it takes up space on the panel. The next thing we'll look at is the desktop, and here's where you can figure out what you want to see on the screen. I don't like computer, and what I like to do is get me a trash can, and put it on the screen. I'm going to move this trash can down here to this corner. Of course, when I full size the screen, it'll move around, but this is what I ordinarily do. And let's see, mounted volumes, you can have it show when you put a disc in or a USB stick or something like that. I will leave that on, but actually I usually turn it off. And the next thing I want to look at here is the panel, because we're going to do some customization on this panel, and I love this. It's one of my favorite parts. So we're going to intelligently hide the panel, and 250 milliseconds to show, 500 to go away. So that's a quarter of a second if you drag your mouse down there for it to show up, and then it hangs around for about a half a second, which is fine. And I do like to use a larger size on the panel because the standard size is very small. So we'll do that. Now that's done, taken care of. What else do we need to look at here? I do want to look at the screensaver. So let's go into that, take a look. And what I ordinarily do is just turn this thing completely off in a virtual machine. I don't want it to do anything. I don't want it to lock the screen. I don't want it to ever do anything, so just never turn the thing completely off. You can choose whatever settings you like, but the stock settings are a bit annoying because every time the screensaver comes on, it locks the computer and you have to put your password in. And if you want to be that secure, knock yourself out, you know what I mean? But I'm not too worried. So we'll come down here and we don't have to mess with any of this stuff. We will open up power management and never blank the screen and never suspend. It's a virtual machine, gang. The host will take care of that if I leave it running in the background. And that's that. We're done. Okay, so our settings are set up. And I want to go in here and open up the home directory, and there is one file which I'm going to drag out of here. And this is purely for vanity's sake. This is the home directory on the machine, and I am now showing hidden files so I can see it. So I can just drag that in there like that. And now I should be able to find that if I look at hidden files. Yes. So just a little bit of vanity there. I always like to see my pretty face at the login. And that picture's actually quite inaccurate. That picture's about 10 years old. I don't have that much hair anymore. But it's nice to dream, isn't it? Okay. So the next thing that we're going to want to do is to open up this little file here where I have my settings for my browser. So we drag these in. Actually, probably what we should do is see if there's one already here, and there is. So we want to get rid of that, delete, and we're going to drag in mine. And then the Geary settings, which is the mail client that I like to use, they will go into local or .local. This is where some programs and things put their settings. So we put those in there, and there they are. Now I have a bit of an issue. I don't have Geary installed yet, so let's go ahead and get Geary, and we'll install it. We can go ahead and delete that off the desktop now. We don't need it. So you usually see me use Synaptic, but since I'm doing this in the video, I'm going to use the Software Center. Or in the case of Linux Mint, it's called the Software Manager. This is actually a really groovy application. I did a video and talked a bit about it a long time ago. It's sort of like what Ubuntu Software Center is, but it is not nearly as complex, and it actually works. It does take a little bit to load, though, so we might as well find something to talk about while it boots up. There we go. All right, now I'm just going to do a search directly for what I want, which is Geary. enter Gary Mail. It's the first thing on the list. So just double click and it gives you all the information about it. And we're going to put it in there. And it's going to go out and download Gary. Gary's quite small. It should only take a couple of seconds for this to come in. And then I'm going to go and get rid of Thunderbird because the Thunderbird mail client is one that I absolutely will not use at all. While that is doing that, there's a couple of other things that we can be doing. Need to find a program here called Disks. And we're going to open it up. Let's try that again. I bet those of you who are longtime viewers of my video will know that I have broken a rule when I have installed this, and I have not updated it yet. But I figure for the sake of the video, I would go ahead and go through some of this stuff, and then I will update it later. But in reality, as soon as you boot up the system, the first thing that you want to do is to update it. What I'm doing now is I'm going to enable the write caching on the virtual drive, which will actually make it go a little bit faster. That's done. So the next time we reboot the machine here, we'll be using the memory that is built into the hard disk itself to kind of buffer writes to the drive. And if you have a lot of little things that are writing at once, it can change the order and hold on to them a little bit, so it actually goes a little bit quicker. In the default mode with no write cache enabled, what you'll get is that the entire system will stop and wait for those writes to complete, and it does hit performance. So we installed Gary, so we have that, and I could go and uninstall Thunderbird using the Software Center, but let's do that a slightly different way, just for fun. And you'll notice that in Linux Mint your colors are already set, and I bet you sudo, let me see here. Yes, it changes the color in Linux Mint, so that's something that is in the bash RC that we didn't have when we were looking at that earlier in the video. But anyhow, oh bother. Okay, so I want to go ahead and just remove Thunderbird completely off the machine because I'm never going to use it. Sudo apt get purge Thunderbird. And running the purge command will mean that not only will it remove Thunderbird, it'll remove anything associated with it. Now, I would warn you that if you're going to replace software like this, that you'll want to install the piece of software you want first, then do a complete remove or a purge, because that way you're going to not take things off the system that other pieces of software might need. It's how the dependencies work. Why is the command not found? Oh, dyslexia kicked in. It's sudo, not sudo. It always does when I'm making videos. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Yes, please. Take all that stuff off the machine. And it goes away. So no Thunderbird. Alright, so let's go ahead and boot up Gary and get that going. Since I've already put the configuration files in, it'll just come right up. And I give it my password. Hopefully I typed that in correctly the first time. And now we have Gary. So Gary is up and running. And we will want to put it on the menu here. So Gary. I didn't want to open it, but I did anyway, didn't I? I wanted to right click, not left click. So let's do that one more time. All right. If we right click on it, we can add it to favorites, which is where I want it to go. And we'll put it right there under Thunderbird. And I don't really need the software settings there. You notice that software manager is in there, so right click here. I want to remove that from favorites. And I don't need the terminal either, because the terminal is available from a key command. Alternate Control T will get you a terminal on most Ubuntu based distributions, and that definitely works on Linux Mint, so there's no reason to have that there. So now we have a much cleaner favorites menu. I will add this here. So it's down on the taskbar, and I'm going to remove the terminal shortcut because we don't need it. This is done, ladies and gentlemen. You now have a completely, totally, fully functional Linux Mint distribution. And this is how quick it is to install. Linux Mint comes totally tricked out and ready to rock and roll, unless you want to add software that, more specialized stuff. It doesn't come with a video editor, for instance, so you have to choose one of those. Kdenlive was at 17.1 having a problem running on Linux Mint. I don't know whether they fixed that problem. Actually, all of the KDE-based applications were having problems installing. So they may have fixed that problem, but of course OpenShot is another video editor that you could choose. And if you want to spend a little bit of money and get probably the best one right now for Linux, it's called Lightworks. You can look that up. It's a pretty awesome program. But all the basic stuff is here. You can surf the web and do anything you need to do. Now, like I said, the one thing that I have not done is update the system. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And I want to do that. Actually, I want to update the system before I open up Firefox, because the settings in Firefox are for the latest version, and this one's from a way back, and that can cause some conflicts and some problems. So if you want to move your Mozilla folder around like that, just make sure that you're matching up your Firefox version, and then I can open it up and then I can tell it what machine it's on. So let's see how many. The Mint upgrade info. Actually, let's go ahead and give that a try, because I don't think this version of Firefox is going to be that much older. If it was 2 or 3 versions back, we might have a problem, but let's see what it does. I'll go ahead and open it up while it's doing its thing there. And show you the one thing that we need to do, which is to go into Preferences, and we click on Sync. Alright, yes, that's my email, and I don't care if you've got it. So this is going to be, what do we call this? We call this Joe-LM-VM. So now I've told the sync service, Mozilla's sync service, that we have an extra Firefox for it to sync. So that went quite well. And I'm just going to install these updates. So we'll go ahead and stop the video here, because that's how easy it is to set up Linux Mint, ladies and gentlemen. It is a fully functional, ready to rock and roll distribution. So, did have a few problems, but looks like they've smoothed things out. I've been using it on the other computer for a while, and I just thought you guys would like to hang out and watch me do that. And if you have any questions, feedback, or whatever, be sure and shoot me a message in the comments if you'd like me to help you get started with Linux. If this kind of just went over your head and you just want somebody to hold your hand, follow the link to easylinux.com and find out how I can help you get started. Okay? Thanks for watching, gang. Talk to you again soon. And by the way, if you have any ideas for tips or things that you'd like to learn about, tell me about those as well. I need some ideas for YouTube videos, and we'll see what we work our way through. Thanks for watching. Talk to you again soon.